see. So how many people do you think actually have problematic infestation of different bacteria, viruses, fungus? Is there an idea of how many people are adversely affected?
Well, adversely affected, I mean, anybody who probably exhibits with symptoms beyond feeling optimal, there's some level of, I would say an infection of some sort. I mean, we all have a burden of viruses. So from day one, when we're birthed, there's accumulation of viral, particles that hang out in us. And, like for example, chickenpox and shingles and the common cold, they're going to be in our systems. And if our immune system is doing its job, like you never have any symptoms. Maybe you have a cold once in a while. So those are like minor things in terms of viral things. So they're not going to leave us. But if your immune system is doing the job, then that covers everything. Bacterial stuff, sometimes you might get a cough or, congestion or mucus and stuff like that. So it's there. But again, the immune system should take over and cover that. And then, candida is also a very common issue that people deal with. Some people never have any symptoms. Some people get a yeast infection here and there, or UTI here and there. But those are signs of, a little bit of bacterial or fungal overgrowth. So we're not immune to these things. I mean, it's not going to ever not have these things.
The constant tug of war.
This constant tug of war. Yeah. And the other thing that we don't talk too much about in the modern society is parasitic infections. Because if you're eating food and drinking water on this earth, there's a likelihood of you experiencing a parasite or two. It may not manifest into actual symptoms, but you might ingest a parasite or, eggs of parasites, and they can just hang out in your system. And given opportunistic environments, like when you're under stress or you have increased toxicities, they might start becoming more active. And then the symptoms can be a little bit more apparent in terms of GI discomfort, brain fog, fatigue, and then immune regulation or dysregulation at that point. Or some people definitely know, like when they went traveling abroad and they ate something and they came back and never felt the same afterwards, so the poops are never the same afterwards, then those are signs that, parasites are there. But just thinking about that is, you can't avoid the parasites outright from whatever you eat. So in my philosophy of treatment is we can prophylactically treat with, antiparasitic herbs or teas or medications annually or biannually, or just depends on, frequency that you want. But some indigenous cultures practice that as a normal ritual where they spend, certain, time of the year where they purge for parasites, and then they maintain, freedom in their gut. Wow. In some cultures, it's readily available. Like, a lot of the, some of the South American countries, you can buy parasite medications, just off the counter. You don't have to see a doctor because they just know that it's just, you need it. So it's pretty crazy how in the US, we don't really talk too much about this, and it's kind of overlooked.
Have you tried those, yourself or on your patients?
Yeah.
And so people actually, were they able to see the parasites?
Some you do, some you don't. I mean, most of the parasites we think about are like worms and stuff, but majority of the parasites are like amoebas or are the single cell organisms. So they're not going to be visible to the naked eye. So if you poop anything out, you may or may not notice anything. You might see colonies of them, which are long stringy mucousy things. So those are the biofilm and the structures that they've been existing in, but you're not likely to typically see single cells at a time. Mm-hmm. And then some rare cases, people do have actual worms coming out, if they have the helmet types of parasites, but those are a little less common. But most people may have these single cell type of organisms just floating around. You can't avoid them, but the problem is modern testing also sucks for this too. So if you go to your regular GI, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to find anything. If you're really lucky, you might show up with something here and there, but it's hit or miss. And then, sometimes the treatments may not be long enough to actually get through the whole life cycle of the parasite. So it's interesting, for me personally, I do parasite cleansing about monthly. I mean, just there's a timing to do it, and surround the full moon. You get more efficiency with treating for parasites around the full moon.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Yeah, because that's the timing when parasites typically reproduce. So they actually go through life cycles, and with the influence of the moon on our bodies also create a little bit more endorphins around that time. Then is a signal for the parasites to start, reproducing at that period of time. And
Interesting.
then and that's where they're more vulnerable too. So you can also knock a little more out. But if you did just relate it to like how the whole world behaves around the full moon, there's like higher incidence of crime and the people are just little off around the full moon because a lot of that's just being driven by what's going on in us. So if you can see like there's dogs that are
Right.
howling and animals because there's parasites that are like just triggering, various neurological or
Yeah.
emotional
You know,
activities.
it's funny. I worked in a psych emergency room for 11 years and we were always talking about, oh, watch out tonight. We're full
Yeah.
moon. And it seems like, we're joking around that was, a myth. But, yeah, but it's interesting that you are saying that there's definitely truth to it.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, if you ever try like treating for it, some people, they feel after they cleared it out, the full moons that come around, they just feel normal. They're not angry at the partner anymore. They're not blowing up for no apparent reason.